So what it looks like now is the decision-making and planning processes. And part of this journey, if you like, is why it's not called JMAP 2.0, why it's not called MAP 2.0, but it is actually about decision-making and planning processes. And I'll show you how I got there. Okay, so they're the 4 planning processes that we teach in the military. Okay, JMAP bottom right. You would have all in your initial employment been taught the combat military appreciation process, and then you probably would have gone on to the IMAP and then the staff military appreciation process itself. What you are probably not taught is that they are particular types of planning processes. But we teach them as a generalist planning process to solve all problems. And that's part of the problem, that these processes don't solve most military problems, and I'll get to it. The new process, there's 2 of them. That's why it's called processes in the PAM. The first one is what's called the immediate decision-making process, and the second, which largely replaces the MAP and the JMAP, is called the deliberate military appreciation process. The difference between the 2 is that the DMAP is an analytical reductionist process like the former MAP, but the immediate decision-making process is an intuitive decision-making process. Okay? And what we're teaching people now is to have faith initially in your intuitive response to a problem. Okay? And for those with short attention span, including my mates online, the bottom line is that we're going to teach you both. And the key is to understand the value of both processes and use both of them depending on the situation. On the right there is the DMAP. Now, there is a step missing from the DMAP that used to be in the MAP. And that is the final step, which is the decision step. Now, that's not because this is designed for Canberra in order not to make a decision. The key thing here, that as a commander, you will make decisions at any time, and ideally as early as possible in the process. You do not wait to the end. As soon as you can make a decision, make a decision. Okay, and the decision in this case is the course of action to be executed. Okay, so that's an important step forward. You don't wait to the end of the process. As soon as you can make a decision and act. Okay, so specifically what's changed by step. In the scoping and framing, we are introducing a thing called staff estimates and running staff estimates. You're going to hear a lot about that in Army now. In simple terms, it starts with a status report. So if you're the 4, for example, you should have at your perfectly formed fingertips the logistical state of your unit. Okay? Or in this case of the brigade or of the division. If you're the 3, you will start the process with the status and location of your units. Okay? And it's called a running staff estimate because it changes as they change. So you will actually bring that to planning. It's a key input to planning. Okay? Mission analysis, there's no separate facts and assumptions. You don't have to beat yourself up coming up with all your facts and assumptions as a single step in the process. You do that continuously anyway, so now it is a running process through the whole thing. FASD, which you'd be familiar with as screening criteria, I've added 2 new screening criteria, and they are deception and adaptability. So a course of action is not workable now if you have not considered A, how you will deceive your adversary, and B, how you are protecting yourself against deception. It's not an afterthought just before you brief your boss. It's a critical part at all times in a COA. And adaptability is basically what next and what if. So it stops you from running off the end of your plan. How many shoots have you done, or how many tactical problems have you done where you just focus on the current problem? You finish the current problem and you go home, okay, or go to the mess. Okay, in this case now, you are forced to say, in this COA, what happens if? What if there is no enemy on that hill? What will you do? What if the enemy counterattacks you after you do this? So it forces you to think ahead. And as part of that thinking ahead, you then have to take actions. So I will put that screen out in case I'm counterattacked at that point. I will push the limit of exploitation out in case I am successful. So you're not just solving the current problem, you're thinking ahead to the next. And now that is part of whether you have a workable COA or not. Have I thought what if or what next? Okay. Centre of gravity, I had to play with centre of gravity because I like centres of gravity, but instead of just being an intellectual finger painting, you then have to also express it as a defeat mechanism. In other words, I've done all this intellectual thought, what does it mean? And the defeat mechanism is a practical way of saying this is how I'm using centre of gravity in order to either preempt, dislocate or disrupt my adversary. Okay? COA concepts used to be the first part of the COA development point. It's now the last part of mission analysis. So funnily enough, it's the thing you talk to your commander with in the MA brief. So the MA brief is now no longer, sir, ma'am, we think your mission is this. Yeah, good, thanks, numbnuts, I'll figure that out. What I want is some analysis. Okay, so instead of the brief being a history lesson of what you've done, it's now about what you are going to do next. And the best way to do that is to talk about the concepts you propose to take forward.